Ta-Nehisi Coates is absolutely correct in that Palestine is not complicated. Now, for those that don't know, Ta-Nehisi Coates is a mainstream, award-winning journalist in America who has talked about the case for reparations, talked about on behalf of African American and social justice issues. He's co-written comic books pertaining to the Black Panther, Marvel franchise. He's prolific, award-winning, intelligent, but unlike the vast majority of mainstream journalists, he's actually somewhat courageous because he was able to cut through the blowback, the fear of a blowback of discussing the issue of Palestine and the systemic racism that is at the forefront as a foundation of how Palestinians are treated in the apartheid state of Israel, as well as the ethnic cleansing. Of course, he doesn't go far enough, I don't think, in that what is happening right now in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing, the genocide, is a symptom, is a continuation of the entire project of colonization. Genocide is, a lot of people think of genocide as this thing that is far removed from history, as like isolated incident in history, whereby it just comes from pure evil and it just there's no strategy to it, right? But genocide here, in this case, there is a military strategy to genocide because they want a final solution to those that are resisting colonization. Because of course, who would, even by the words of actual Israeli officials themselves, they have said themselves that, or former Israeli officials, they've said themselves that if they were born in Israel, if they're born in Gaza or West Bank or any Palestinian land, they would themselves would take arms against those that are colonizing it against them. They understand the psychology, and I wouldn't even go that far of to say that because of course I can only talk from my point of view. At least they understand, they've internalized in themselves that they themselves can be seen as the aggressor from the point of view of the other. And this is possibly the reason why they are so hell-bent in removing any trace of the Palestinians, because of course that is a reminder of the fact that they are not indigenous to the land, that the land was seized by force. And this comes back to the point that the issue of Palestine is not complicated. You can go back to 1895, not even the 20th century. You can go back to the 19th century, to Theodor Herzl, the founder of political Zionism, where he justified the removal of Palestinians, not necessarily by force at that time, although it came later, over time, that people like Vladimir Jabotinsky, indigenous to the Middle East, he wanted to justify the use of arms against the indigenous people as a way to drive them out, as a way to protect their ethnocracy, their Jewish racial supremacist state. Now, Ta-Nehisi Coates was lambasted on CBS. This is a notorious interview whereby he was asked, he was lambasted from the onset. Now, I'll be doing a breakdown of this particular interview in my next video. But in this video, I'm just going to talk about the overall broader attitudes and also explaining the history of why the issue of Palestine is not complicated, even whilst we can understand and empathize with the psychology, the trauma that is inflicted on Jewish communities and the humiliation that Jewish people suffered at the hands of Nazis. The reason why it's not complicated, because of course there was of course this trauma and humiliation, but that was in Europe. This is the primary point, that the primary point of justification for the state of Israel, as apologists like to make. But the people in Palestine, they're living their lives. They were just, and Jewish people and Muslims and Christians, they're living together. And this wasn't Nazi Germany. And so in 1917, you had the Balfour Declaration, whereby you got the British colonial state kind of marking that territory for a future Jewish state, whilst, and hear me out, 90% of the people that lived there already were Arab Christians and Muslims. 97% of the land was owned by Arab non-Jewish people. So how do you have the audacity, the entitlement to claim the land? 1919, the World Zionist Organization in Paris, they marked the land, not just including historical Palestine, but Egypt, parts of Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, as their own land, their own promised land. And so this kind of, clearly, is the rationalism for the Jewish Colonialism Association, JCA, because of course that gave them the funding, the organization in order to take the land. And no doubt there was resistance to this. I mean, this is why it's very simple. Now, I'm here to talk about and explain the reasons why. I'm here to, shed light on the truth. The truth is very important. Irrespective of how you feel about it, it's very important. Now, I don't condone all the different acts along the way. I don't even condone what happened on October 7th, but I do understand what happened, in the 19th century, all the way to the present moment. I do understand the kind of like the attitudes, the desire to claim the land, and even the justifications that are made, that that this is historically indigenous Jewish lands, which is not even accurate to the scriptures of Jewish scriptures, because even Abraham himself, being the patriarch of the Jewish people, did not even come from those lands. It did not come from the Levant. He came from the city of Ur in modern day Iraq. So it's merely a colonial justification, just as the Bible was used to justify slavery. And then we'll come back to why Ta-Nehisi Coates is very powerful, but it's the same justification that is used to justify the colonialism of Palestine. Now, I understand why the trauma and the humiliation would kind of create a mindset whereby one has it is us versus them, and us against the world even, and it creates a kind of pariah mentality. But ultimately, that doesn't justify the subjugation of another people. Reparations should have been paid by those who actually harmed them in the first place, and by individuals rather than entire people. By the way, I'll discuss this further in my next video, where I'll talk about Ta-Nehisi Coates' interview. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. That'd be very much appreciated.